Paul Skenes is set to represent the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight in the All-Star game, and the commissioner, Rob Manfred, is openly talking about a salary cap system. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. The Pirates will be repped by Paul Skenes tonight at the All-Star game, and Rob Manfred is openly talking about a salary cap, so I suppose we should too. If it's safe for the commissioner, it's safe for us, right? Before I talk about Paul Skenes, let's talk a little bit about Oneil Cruz last night in the Home Run Derby. That was a lot of fun. First, he repped himself well. He said he approached it like batting practice, and anybody that's been to PNC Park early knows exactly what he's talking about, because that's what he did. Just went out and hit baseballs far. I think he had the 5th or 6th furthest hit baseballs last night. Hit 21, actually won the first round by the distance of that one home run, actually, because he technically tied at 21. Got to the second round. His matchup was Cal Raleigh, and Cal Raleigh just kind of took him to school for that second round. But Oneil Cruz did look good, hit a lot of long home runs, certainly didn't embarrass himself out there. And again, just showed you kind of what's in there, what's so exciting, and listening to the national pundits talk about him. It's been a long time since, I think I've heard it. You get trapped in the bubble of watching the local coverage and listening to the local talking heads and the frustrations that grow from watching a guy play all the time and not reach his potential. I think the national media seems a little more focused on what he can become as opposed to us, who are just frustrated that he hasn't become it. So I don't know, just something to keep in mind. I think the perception of Oneil Cruz league-wide is certainly not what I think you're seeing here, which is probably true for just about every player to some degree in one direction or another. Paul Skenes starts the All-Star game again tonight. This is MLB history. He's the first pitcher to ever start in the All-Star game in each of his first 2 seasons in the majors. It's pretty remarkable. It's elite talent. He's just had immediate impact on this league since debuting with the Pirates in May of last year. In 2024, Skenes became the first rookie pitcher to start the All-Star game since Hideo Nomo did it in 1995. And, tonight he's going to repeat that honor, making him the only pitcher in MLB history to start the Midsummer Classic in both his rookie and sophomore seasons. He's joining an elite group of just 5 players to start All-Star games in each of their first 2 seasons. And these names, these are the types of things that just, they scream, this kid is just a special, special animal. Joe DiMaggio, 7 straight starts from 36 to 42. Ichiro Suzuki, 4 straight from 2001 to 2004. Rod Carew, 3 straight from 67 to 69. And Frank Robinson, 2 straight from 56 to 57. Despite his 4-8 record here in 2025, Skenes he's been dominant. ERA sits at 2.01. That's the lowest in MLB. His WHIP is 0.93. It's tied for 5th. Opposing batting average, 189. That's 4th. Strikeouts, he has 131 in 121 innings. His win-loss record is misleading, as the Pirates have provided 4 or fewer runs of support in 16 of his 20 starts. Skenes is one of just 5 Pirates pitchers to start an all-star game, including Bob Friend, who did it in 56 and 60, Jerry Royce in 75, Doc Ellis in 71, and Rip Sewell did it 3 times in 1943, 44, and 46. He's also the first Pirates pitcher to earn back-to-back All-Star selections since David Bednar in 22 and 23. So it's a historically significant moment. I'm looking forward to watching Paul Skenes pitch tonight. Sounds like they've already pre-decided that it's just going to be one inning. And I would expect Paul to probably come out and try to do at least one of his signature 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I would imagine we're not going to just see him look like he usually does in his Pirates starts, where he's trying to see if he can get into a game a little bit. I think we might see Paul Skenes, the reliever, if you will, in this one, where he kind of just balls out and gives it all he has for an inning. And that's fun just to see what he could do if he wanted to cut loose at all times. I can't wait to watch it. I wish it was a little bit longer. You'd like to see him face a few more of these guys, but 3 or 4 that he's probably going to face in the first inning, unless he gets hit, which we don't want to see. I think that's enough of a taste. And for some of you, I think it'll be pretty convenient because you'll be able to shut the All-Star game off, probably by 9 o'clock. So we'll see how that goes for everybody. The All-Star game doesn't keep my interest very easily. I'll at least keep it on in the background, but I got to be honest, I'll quit paying attention once Paul's out of it, especially since there's not even a threat that somebody's going to pop up off the bench and have to pinch hit or something. So, yeah, with Paul being the only one there, that's pretty much the story. I don't think that there's any kind of matchups we haven't seen before that we should be super stoked about seeing. I think we've seen him face just about everybody that's worth seeing at this point. Doesn't mean you can't see more of it or wouldn't like to see more of it, but he's not going to face Shohei Ohtani. They're teammates, and I think you're looking at a few AL guys like Cal Raleigh is somebody that I'm sure people are going to want to see, but we just saw that, in Seattle. So I don't know that we have to see anything in particular. Let's just hope that he goes out, doesn't get hurt, throws a couple of signature super fast fastballs and gets out of it without breaking anything. All in all, it's a great honor. I don't think that the Pirates have been repped this well in quite some time. We've had a lot of those stretches of time where the All-Star probably didn't really deserve to be an All-Star, or at least you could make the argument that it was just as much about the role to make sure that somebody represented your team. But it's nice to see a guy that there's no question as to whether he should or shouldn't be there. I don't think anybody on the Pirates got snubbed, though. I heard some people talking about potentially, Dennis Santana or even David Bednar might have earned another look here as an All-Star representative. I can make a case, I think, for either of them. David Bednar, really remarkable comeback from the way he started the season. And I think there was a path there for him to get into the All-Star game, but I don't think it was a big one or a wide one, or I don't think he should feel hard done by because he didn't make it. And I just don't think anybody else, offensively, even sniffed being some kind of a consideration here. It feels like we should just count our blessings that we got the one guy we got. I suppose you could, if Mitch Keller's record was better, there'd be a little bit of a push for him to have gotten some recommendation here. He does have an ERA under 3.50. He has pitched really well this year despite that record. So there's an argument that probably could have been made there, but I think you could just as easily say Christopher Sanchez or Ranger Suarez probably deserved a shot just as much. Paul Skenes is the only for sure there. So when we come back, what I want to do is take the opportunity to have all these no games, but also some newsy stuff that's been popping up. Rob Manfred has been kind of becoming a little bit more open about his desire to change this system. And they're not saying the word yet, but I think we all know what they mean. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I have streaming apps coming out my backside sideways. And I used Monarch to look through all of them, and I went and attacked it and started bundling them and finding ways I could get them free from other services I was already paying for. Wound up saving a ton of money and didn't lose any service. Monarch Money's pretty sweet. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, drop a like here. Lots of comments on yesterday's show talking about the draft and even the draft special that we did on Sunday. I appreciate it. I try to keep up with them. Some of you wanted to write me like full scale articles in the comments. I try to read them, but it's really hard to reply to those. So maybe we'll do a Q&A this week. It seems like we should do a Q&A this week. Let's make sure we work that in. Maybe let's do it Thursday. Okay. Manfred, there's a role that he has in place, and it's a smart role. And it's basically that nobody in the league under him should be directly stating that they want a salary cap system. Those words in particular. It seems to be like a pretty hard and fast rule that they don't want to mention the word. But they're becoming more and more comfortable with dancing around the subject, and it's certainly where things are headed. I just want to talk about Rob Manfred's appearance on the Pat McAfee show the other day. He had some pretty pointed comments about the state of Major League Baseball's economic system, particularly in relation to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that would make sense because Pat, being a Yinzer, of course, specifically brought up the Pittsburgh Pirates and teed him up for these comments. But I think it's worth going through a little bit. I do. First, he acknowledged fan frustration. But Manfred said the Pirates fans are passionate and deserve to feel like their team has a fair chance to win. This is exactly what he said. Pittsburgh is a great sports town. They just want to look at the system and think that they have a fair chance to win. We need to deal with that issue. Well, before we go any further, there's a couple things there. Yeah, he didn't say salary cap, but he did reference the system. And he did talk about dealing with it as an issue, meaning the system is an issue. Note that this wasn't a chastising of Bob Nutting for not spending, like many of you want to see the league do. This wasn't a threatening of moving the team, something that this league will never do. This was just an acknowledgement that the system doesn't work for everyone, and specifically the Pittsburgh Pirates. He spoke to systemic inequality. Here was his quote. It's undeniable that we have fans and markets who believe they don't have a fair opportunity to compete And at the end of the day, what we sell is competition. I mean, this is exactly what we have said for years and years, many of us who are proponents of a salary cap system. And what's important here is that in that quote, he framed the Pirates not as villains for not spending, but as victims of a flawed system that makes it difficult for small market teams to compete consistently. He acknowledged that the current structure undermines competitive balance. And I think that's really all it has to be. It doesn't have to say that Bob Nutting is actually a secretly great person who has stewarded this team in a great way. It just means that, like, even if he did, they would still come up short. Another quote here: we need to streamline our offering. We need to get out of the blackout business. We've got people that want to watch games and they can't. Boy, this has been a long time coming. This has been a long time coming. People have been talking about these blackout rules forever. And it definitely needs taken care of. But this national media thing, this broadcast model, I think people undersell this for the importance that it actually holds to this entire debate. Because there's really no way to get to a salary cap which is propped up by a functional and really powerful sharing system. If you don't have that, and you don't have that universal bucket of money that national TV brings in, then you probably don't have an effective cap, and or you are straight up stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And I think that kind of starts stroking a lot of violin strings on the old socialism whining metric, if you will, right? And so I can understand not wanting that, but it's something that they have to take care of. Obviously, the players are not going to want a salary cap. They're going to argue that the issue is not the teams that spend a lot of money, but the teams just like the Pirates that don't. And I can't sit here and tell you that they're entirely wrong. I just think where they kind of creep into wrong is where they fail to realize that not everybody is capable of doing what the Dodgers do, and that in and of itself is the problem. It's not necessarily that everybody has the same starting point or that everybody can get to the same starting point. The current labor agreement expires in December of 2026. So these comments and comments like them that we've been hearing, they're really seen as early positioning for a major change to MLB's economic structure at the next CBA negotiation. Manfred's comments to me suggest like that he wants reform. And the path forward is, of course, uncertain because there are some internal disagreements. I can say that with him talking the way he is, I'm going to go ahead and guess that he's got a pretty solid coalition building up of different different ownership. And I'm going to bet that he's got at least a couple owners that would be considered to be up there in the big spending category. I would have to imagine the Yankees are one of those, if only because Hal Steinbrenner has been pretty open about it already. But we've heard some murmurings out of Boston that they have that same kind of situation or belief. And we as Penguins fans, you know, we have the same ownership group, the Fenway Group, and we've heard them talk about the benefits of the salary cap in the NHL and how much they wished it was in MLB. So I think it shouldn't come as a shock to any Pittsburgh sports fans that kind of follow all the teams, because we've heard FSG's been into that for a minute. But those are a couple of the bigger markets. I would also say you only need 8 ownership groups to really shut up the works. They won't be able to pass any CBA if you have 8 teams that won't do it. Last time they negotiated the CBA, they had those 8 teams. The problem is they only had those 8 teams, and they held up the works for quite some time and pushed a lot of the narratives along to try to get some kind of economic reform. And at some point, they just realized without any big market support, it's going to fall apart. So they all caved and voted for the CBA. Yes, Bob Nutting was in that group. So were a lot of the other lower end of the spending category markets. But this year, or 2026, it feels like it's going to be a little bit different, if only again because we've got some indications that there's some bigger markets involved here. I don't see any way this happens without a protracted long fight. So, you know, put some powder on your backside, because I think there's going to be some red asses out there. This is not going to be an easy fight, and it probably shouldn't be. It's league changing, something like this. I don't know if they're going to get all the way into a salary cap. I don't know if they have to. But I do think that we need to talk a little bit more about maybe why it's such a sensitive situation. And I think it's got a lot to do with confusing the administration of sports leagues with geopolitical ideologies. And I just think that we need to separate the two out. That's what we're going to do in the next segment. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked On Pirates. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit of like side swipe at politics. Please don't read anything into it. I'm not going to try to give you my political leanings here. I'm just trying to make it make sense why some people are so anti salary cap, even when it seems like it should make total sense for them based on the market they root for. The conflation of a salary cap system in sports with socialism or other geopolitical ideologies, to me, is fascinating. It, I mean, it it doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense. A salary cap is a limit on the amount a team can spend on player salaries. It's designed to promote competitive balance by preventing wealthier teams from hoarding talent. And it's to encourage parity so smaller market teams can compete with the larger ones. It gets conflated with socialism or other things because salary caps often come and they have to come with revenue sharing, increased revenue sharing, aggressive revenue sharing, some would even call it, where richer teams subsidize poorer ones. I mean, it mirrors socialist principles of redistributing wealth and ensuring equity, and some critics equate it with government mandated economic living. I guess here's where I kind of put my line in the sand on all that. And it's easiest to do it this way. Okay, but it's not. Sports is for entertainment, right? And if every team in the league doesn't have the same opportunity to win, for an American audience, it just doesn't play the way it does in the other leagues where that sort of thing flies. European soccer is something that I always point to, and they have a relegation system for teams that can't afford to get into the dance, basically. They have a system for those teams to climb out of relegation and get themselves back into the league. And then once they do, they have to basically promise that they can spend up to a certain level to be in it. And they get 3 years before they get kicked back out. I mean, there's a whole logic to it, and I can get behind it. I'm a fan of European soccer. I watch it. And I admittedly I'm a front runner. I watch Liverpool. They're a good team. They're always a good team. I don't have to care about relegation, and I don't know enough about the league to care all that much if they're hoarding all the players. Because to me, I'm just watching a team that I think is good, and I don't have a problem with it. But that's why European soccer is the way European soccer is, and they have a different mentality about it. To them, it's just about spending the money and spend as much as you can, and if you can't, get out of the way. That's okay. It's a different theory. I just think in baseball, the American audience doesn't adjust it the right way. In capitalist ideology, success is often tied to market freedom and the idea that those who can earn more spend more. And a salary cap restricts that freedom, which some interpret as anti-market or anti-meritocracy, if you will. And I get that, especially in today's climate where these words are getting thrown around an awful lot. Again, I would just say these are sports, not politics. Separate it out. This is about making a league entertaining and the overall mechanism, the overall organism of the league more healthy. It's more healthy if Green Bay can win the Super Bowl just as easily as San Francisco. You know what I mean? You don't have to be in a big city to win it all in Major League Baseball. That would be great. And I think in theory, that's true now. In practice, I don't think we've seen it be true. When you go into some of these other sports like the NBA, well, they've got Oklahoma just won, Oklahoma City. I mean, that's crazy, right? Can you imagine a baseball team in Oklahoma City doing that? I can't. Maybe not outside of their initial go at it when they get to go and pick players off of other people's teams in an expansion draft and start out, in a good spot. I don't see that being the case after time goes by, unless they run the team the way Tampa does. And that's another side of this thing. Sometimes it's not just about can you manage to find a way to win. It's about, well, how come all the other markets get to keep a star and have them retire there and go into the Hall of Fame wearing their hat? Does Tampa have that? Does Tampa have anybody like that? Or do their stars all go off and do what they're going to do elsewhere? I mean, you can say, okay, they're winning and they're making this system work for them, and that's cool and everything, but you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, right? You're sitting here right now. You've got Andrew McCutchen is probably your best bet at somebody you've grown up watching making the Hall of Fame and wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates cap. Who else? Yeah. For real, Mitch Keller, maybe. If he finishes his contract here, that'll be a good long stretch of Mitch Keller's career in Pittsburgh, no matter what he does after it. And he'll be a young enough man when his contract expires that he'll still have some years left. But the majority of his career will have been in Pittsburgh. We will probably consider Mitch Keller a Pittsburgh Pirate when he retires. There's a good chance he would consider himself a Pittsburgh Pirate should he actually rise to the level of somebody that makes the Hall of Fame, which he's got a lot of work to do to get there. But Paul Skenes, let's say they don't extend him. 3-4 more years of them. And then whatever his numbers were, okay, that's a decent chunk. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Pirate for sure. But much like Garrett Cole, there's going to be a whole bunch of people in this league that don't even remember he was a Pittsburgh Pirate. By the time he's done, by the time he goes to the Hall of Fame, he will. He'll talk about it. Other people will. We will. But the league won't. The league will forget for the most part. And if they do remember it, they'll look back on it like it was some sad thing. All I can say is the NFL and the NBA, they're often praised for their parity, they operate under strict salary caps and revenue sharing systems that resemble centrally planned economies way more than they resemble free markets. And yet, these leagues are wildly popular in the United States, and their systems are rarely criticized as socialist by fans. They lead to exciting, balanced competition. I think that's really all anybody's looking for from MLB. I don't know how this is going to be. I'm certainly not looking forward to a lockout or a strike, but I can almost guarantee we're going to get one. And the more you see these conversations happening out in the open by the commissioner, by different officials in the league, by some ownership groups, the more you hear this stuff casually being talked about and bantied about, the more likely you have to feel that it's going to come. This fight has been held off for a long time. It's almost like watching Game of Thrones, waiting for the White Walkers or the dragons to show up. You know it's going to happen. It's been teased enough that it's going to happen. Now we're just kind of waiting to see when it happens and what it looks like when it does. I know this got a little dark because salary cap discussion ultimately has to go to how you get it. And you get it by shutting down the league. And you don't get it by convincing players to agree to it. Players will never agree to it. There's one way to get a salary cap. Owners have to want it. And if the owners want it, the owners will get it. That's the way it works. That's the way it always has worked. No group of players has ever happily accepted a salary cap in any of the leagues. The funny thing is, I can honestly say those other two leagues I talked about, the NBA and the NFL, their players get a bigger slice of the pie than the MLB players do. I wonder if the MLB players know that. I would think somebody should, gently educate them. That's all I got for you today. Join me tomorrow. We'll talk about the All-Star game a little bit and whatever else comes up. And then let's talk about that Q&A on Thursday. Let's start getting in some questions and I'll bank them up and then we'll have a good show on Thursday, all Q&A. What do you say? Let's go Bucks.